Hey guys, so as you can see I'm working on that bevel gearbox, and what I did here was I drilled out the hole. I took a file and made sure the top of that bolt that was in there that broke off was nice and flat, and then I took a punch and put a center tap or center hole or a center point on the bolt, that was broke off. So now I drilled it and I'm in the process now. I just put this easy out in there. I don't know, I've never had luck with these easy outs. I'll probably make a liar out of me today, but it's a Cobalt brand. I picked them up the other day, not the other day, a couple months ago actually. I don't know, sometimes I just walk around the store and pick stuff up that I think I might need, which isn't often, but it happens. So anyway, there's an easy out in there. So I need to get something on here to, I could probably use a little crescent wrench to get that out. The main thing here is, I drilled it with a smaller bit that hopefully did not affect the threads. If I could just get this out of here, I'd be alright. Now I know I'm all the way through the bolt. The bolt hole doesn't extend through the bottom of the case here, and I'm glad it doesn't. So I want to put a wrench on there and see what happens. Alright, so I've been trying to, and you know what, another thing that I have a hard time finding is something that can actually grab the top of this. So I have this adjustable wrench, which is, it's not a bad wrench, it's a pretty good wrench. It's not made in China, but it's kind of old. But nonetheless, yeah, see, I can't get that thing to turn. So I'm not going to fool around with it, because the last thing I want is to break this off inside there, and I'm pretty sure that if I keep fooling with it I might break it off. Now I turned it backwards to take it out, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drill a hole in there and go to the next size bolt. Not sure what that is, it's probably a 1/4 inch. What I got there is a 13/64 drill bit. And technically I should be just cleaning the whole bolt out of there. Now it's really hard to get directly centered on that. I'm through that already. It's really hard to get exactly centered on this thing. But if you're close, I mean, this isn't that critical. So I've got a hole there now that should give me threads for a 1/4 inch bolt. That's what the original bolt is. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to see if I can't run a 1/4 inch tap through that and just clean out the threads. The threads should still be in there, but they're filled with the bolt that I cut out. So I'm going to just see how that works. When you do a lot of odds and ends like I do, you end up with some favorite tools for stuff. And I found out that Greenfield, at least for me, they make a nice tap. Now this isn't a Greenfield tap, this is an old tap I had in the drawer somewhere, but Greenfield makes nice taps. I bought these tap holders from Grizzly last year. I'm not really too happy with these. They seem like they're made out of really soft stuff. Now trying to clean this out here, you got to take your time with it, or else you'll be messing stuff up. So that's what I'm trying to do here, just to, so you want to, when you feel yourself grabbing, you want to back out of it a little bit. So the last thing you want to do is break a tap off, because they're pretty hard to get out once you do, and I don't want to have to do that. Now because I'm cleaning threads, there should be a lot of junk in there. Well, that's not helping me. They're going crooked like that. Yeah. I wanted a different type of tap. This one's alright, but it's not what I actually wanted, so I'll get back to you. Alright, so trying to clean these threads out here is not really working for me with a 1/4 inch tap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tap, but I need to drill a bigger hole in there for 5/16. I'm going to go to a 5/16 inch bolt. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll still work. So, because I think I may have drilled that hole slightly off center, and if I did, it's not going to help me anyway. So I'm going to try and drill that out with a 5/16 or something that'll fit a 5/16 bolt, and then I'll tap that. Okay, so what I got there now is that's a 17/64 drill, and that'll give me a hole big enough to tap a 5/16 bolt. Okay, so that should be good there. So I'm going to clean that out, and then I'm going to tap that with a different tap. This stuff here works pretty good. So I'm going to just put some of this on the tap. I actually ought to use a starter tap. This is more like a bottoming tap. Let me get another tap here. Okay, so this is a starter tap, meaning that the beginning of the tap is sort of pointed, not to a sharp point, but pointed, and the thread cutters are a lot smaller. So then as you turn that into that, you know, it gives you a chance to get started and then cut the threads in there. There's all kind of videos on YouTube for threading. This is just what I'm doing today, so I'm sure anybody can learn how to do this. It's not hard. It's just got to take your time. You're turning the tap in. You don't want to get to the point where you can't easily turn it. After you're working with different things for a while, you know, you get to the point where you don't even have to really measure stuff with foot-pounds, for instance, because you just know. You get to the point where you pretty much can feel whether the tap is doing what it's supposed to do. And you know, I'm being sort of gentle with it, but at the same time, you know, you need to put a certain amount of effort in it. This is cutting nicely here. The only problem with this, I guess, is that when it's all said and done, I have to have 2 wrenches to take the cover off instead of 1, but it's not like you're going to take this cover off all the time either. I believe I'm down there pretty much all the way. I'll just make sure I'm down in there. Yeah. And then when you put the tap back in like I am there, you want to be real gentle. The tap, you can see how that tap's turning easy. It's going in there by itself. So, and you got to be careful if you bottom out and you put too much pressure on it. If you don't break the tap, then you're liable to screw up your threads that you just made. Then you'll have to drill another hole to the next biggest size. I'm going to let this go like that. I'm going to put that bottoming tap I have in there just to chase the threads nicely, and then I should be alright with this. These are the taps I like. These are called Greenfield, I believe. They are just work nice. I just like them. I mean, I've had this tap since this tap came from a set that I bought when I was, oh my goodness, I must have been 19 years old when I bought that. They still work. I mean, and that was, you know, they were made in the US, all of those taps. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use stuff made somewhere else, because they seem to have a good command on that. You know, taps need to be made out of a certain kind of metal. Okay, so that's going to be good enough for this, because I'm only gonna put a short bolt in there. Alright, so that is another problem solved. On to the next one. Now, one of the things, guys, when you're working with any kind of things like this, I've worked with mechanics who are very sloppy, okay, and they don't really clean much of anything. But if you look inside there, you can see all those particles from that tapping in there. If I don't clean that out and I leave them in there, all they're going to do is sooner or later they will get into the bearings, chew the bearings up, they'll get into the seals, tear the seals up. So you need to make sure this stuff is clean. So I'm going to put this in my parts washer and clean it out good. I'll air dry it and then, blow it out good and make sure that there's no particles like that in there. Yeah, so I was saying there, I've worked with some mechanics that aren't very neat, and it's weird because everybody's different and everybody does different things. Obviously I learned from somebody that was a little bit neater to clean up after stuff, but nonetheless, sometimes when you're out there on the job and you're working on heavy equipment or whatever, there's no place to really clean up. I mean, years ago they didn't have the fancy parts trucks that they have now, or the repair trucks. I mean, we had a crane and a little crane on the truck, a welder, an air compressor, but I've seen some trucks now where the guys go in the thing and they have a little mini machine shop in there to do stuff, which is really nice. But and you don't get a whole lot of mechanics that can do machine work now, but you used to have that years ago. So, but I think it also takes time. I think you have to, work as a mechanic long enough to have had experience with knowing tolerances and how to measure really accurately and stuff like that to be able to get what you're really needing fixed. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, and then I want to blow these bolt holes out and stuff so that when it comes time to press everything in here, it doesn't, and these other shafts, holes that are in here, it's not so hard for me. When I'm working with some of this stuff, I notice that the edges of this are very sharp, the casting. I used to go to the drag races a lot. I was a big fan of drag racing, and I had had the opportunity to talk to a guy by the name of Grumpy Jenkins once. And he was telling me, I just was talking to him. He was fooling around with the car, and he had some time not doing anything. And there was nobody around, and he had the time to tell me that, all this stuff should be honed off so that there's nice edges. You don't want anything to break off. That's where sometimes, he was telling me that the motor sends vibrations through metal. And vibrations can, depending on what the tone is, it can actually break little pieces of metal off. So what he was telling me is to, you would ground these edges off so nothing is sharp. Now that's not to say to grind off where where you need something sharp, but like in here you obviously don't. So you grind these edges off just with a little bit of a chamfer on them so that nothing can break. Same thing like wherever you're going to put seals or whatever. It was an extra effort that, to me, made someone, become a champion at what they do, or at least very good at what they do. If you've ever watched the drag races, I'm sure you've seen him back in the day doing stuff. So, anyway, I'm going to take this over and blow it out with some air and stuff and get it a little bit cleaner than what it is. One of these days I'm going to build myself a hot tank. If it wasn't cold out, I'd actually power wash this thing. Gotta build a place indoors that has all that. Okay guys, so I've been getting phone calls and stuff today, so I've kind of slowed down at this. But here's what I've done so far. At the end of this shaft where the gear is, and I'm going to call this the pinion, there was a a hole in there with some threads in it. So I chased out those holes, and that means that I ran a tap through it just to make sure the threads were good. They're 5/16. They were good. I put these back on. Now there's two washers that are a specific thickness, and this gear has to be pushed against those washers. So I tightened this bolt up, I set it here, and then I pressed that gear until it touched these washers that are here. So that should be where it's supposed to be. One of the other things then is the bearing goes next, and then after the bearing there's a washer, and then there's an O-ring clip that goes around and fits into that groove that you see right there. So we're going to put all that stuff together here. The thing I want to do now is I want to get this bearing put on here. Now a little bit ago I took this shaft, put it on the lathe, and I polished this. And I polished it using rubbing compound. And just to show you how little and how well machined this stuff is, when I went to take this bearing off before, I had a hard time getting it off this top. I couldn't get it off by hand. I had to use a puller. Well, just to show you, I mean, that's the weight of the tool there. That's how closely this thing is machined. So just polishing it made it so that I could get the bearings on and off. Now the bearings should get snug as it goes down on here. We don't really want it loose. So right here at this point, it's a little bit loose, but there's a seal going to run there, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Now the rest of this seems to be getting tight as it goes down. So the bearing rides against this surface. So I need to get that on there. I'm going to have to lower this press here to do this. Okay, so I found a piece of really heavy-duty tubing here that I'm going to use to press this back down on here. So this is a hand press that I got at Harbor Freight. It's not bad. I'm okay with it. It seems like the jacks that you get never stay working, but that's not something that I can really worry about at the moment. This one is working right now. Now I'm going to need to release this and check and see how far it is down here. Okay, I got plenty to go there, so this thing should be able to push this all the way down. Now you can fix these jacks, or you can buy a pneumatic jack or whatever, but I never really have that much stuff that I have to really, you know, go crazy having a fancy press. And this doesn't take all that long. If I was doing this as a business, I would definitely get something better. So we're just going to push that down till that touches right there. Yeah, so then on top of that, the washer. Now this washer has a flat face, and then it also has a face here that has like little indentation. So the indentation is where the O-ring goes. So as long as the bearing's down there far enough, I had to have my glasses, but as long as the bearing's down here far enough, then the snap ring there, and I don't know if you can call that a snap ring, but it's a spring clip of some sort, should be able to fit in there. So they're not really hard to put on. I mean, you can slide them on. Of course, it's better to not scratch anything. I'm in an awkward spot there. Okay, now that clip is not where I want it. I'm having a hard time seeing this because I should have my glasses on, but I need to push this down a little bit more to get that to where it should be. So I'm going to push against that bearing a little bit yet. Okay guys, so the battery had gone dead and I took Bullseye out, so I just want to show you this. The ring's in there, there's a washer in there, and the bearing's on there. So this is all set, ready to go. So then the next thing is on this end of the come on Joe, case. We're going to put a seal in here. You need a seal, and then needle bearings. This is what needle bearings were in there. They're not like real bad, but I can move that pretty easily. But I'll tell you, to be honest, I don't even think they would need to be replaced. I think that some good 90 weight in there will handle that, because this thing doesn't spin that much. But I'm going to put a new one on anyway. So we're going to need to see, we're going to need to put that bearing in there, and then see how this works out here. The bearing that's, the big bearing that's on here, I'll try to show you this. The big bearing that's on here gets also pushed or pressed into this. Now it's not going to take a lot to get that in there, but we do want to make sure that the other needle bearing is in place as well. So I think this might be able to go all together. In other words, I think the needle bearing can go onto this once that goes in, but I want to check it out first. And there's a little bit of space between where this bearing sits, this bearing here sits in here, and where the needle bearing sits. So a little bit of figuring here. I'm not exactly sure how they put this in as far as alignment, but it just has, like, there's this little bolt and keeper here that actually goes against the bearing to hold the bearing in place, which doesn't seem all that great to me, but that's how it's made. So I guess that's how they figured it. It's been working. I mean, that didn't come loose. That's not what the problem was. The bearing got bad because there was no oil in it. So anyway, that's going to be our next piece to do. Not much for this video, but I've been getting phone calls and I've had a bunch of chores to do. So that's as far as I got today. Like I say, I want to put this needle bearing in. I want to see how this thing fits in this case as well. This is actually the old one. Yeah, that's going to take a little bit of pressing to get it into there. So we'll see. I need to figure out how to figure the difference between where this bearing sits and where that bearing sits. Like what separates them. I don't have anything that separates them on here. So I need to figure out how that's going to happen, unless just pressing it holds it, which doesn't seem quite right, but we'll see. Okay guys, so I'm going to press, this is a needle bearing here that goes into the back of this case. So I'm going to press that in there. I have a socket here that I'm going to use. It fits, this socket fits this hole as well as keeps on the shoulder of the needle bearing. So I'm going to push this in here with this. It's going pretty easy. Now there's a little shoulder in there. I'm going to push this down until I hit that shoulder, and then the oil seal should be able to go in on top of that. So right there you can feel it bottomed out. Yeah, so that should be good there. I think you can see that. So the next thing then we're going to do is we're going to press an oil seal into there. I got to go get. Okay guys, so this is the oil seal that goes in there. The spring side goes down in this case. Now, I have worked, like I said, with a bunch of different people. Sometimes guys will put stuff on the outside of this, sometimes they won't, to make sure that that doesn't leak because we're metal to metal. So what I like to do is, and I'm sure they have all kinds of stuff out there that might even be better than this, but I've been using Permatex for so long I wouldn't know how to act with anything else. So I'm just going to put a very small amount of that on the outside of this thing just to help that to seal. And then I'm going to push that down in there. Okay. Now the one thing about an oil seal, it should have oil on this before the shaft gets put in. Now I didn't put any in there because this oil would mix with the Permatex and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put some, I'll spill oil down through all these bearings, some gear oil, before I put that pinion shaft in from this side then, just so you know. So as you can see there, the needle bearings in as well as the oil seal. So all it is now is to basically push that into there. So let me go grab it. So if I didn't say it before, I had polished this shaft up by putting it in the lathe, 600 grit sandpaper and some rubbing compound. So now I do want to put oil in there before I go too far, but that's basically how that thing's going to go together there. Let me lower the camera a little bit. Yeah. And you can see the, like I said, the bearing and stuff is in there. So this just pushes in there, and this bearing has to be seated against the bottom of that. Now that's going to take a little bit of pushing to do that. But since this gear is against the bearing already, I'm just going to have to push on the top of this. I have nothing else I can push on. I don't want to push on the gear. So I'm going to oil this stuff up good with some 90 weight before I put it in there, and then I'll go ahead and put that in. Okay guys, so let me back you up here a little bit, and I use this 90 weight from Napa. So what I'm going to basically do here is put a little bit of this inside the lips of this and on the needle bearing, and then I'm just going to roll this thing around, put a little more in there. It'll roll, some of that oil will move around in there, but 90 weight is thick. And one of the other things, I want to put these so that I'm going to be able to press on this. I need this hole here, that's what I need. This is what it is when you're trying to work cramps and tape stuff. Otherwise I'd be moving everything out of the way. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start this in here, and I'm going to put some oil in there at the same time, so that as this goes down, the shaft is oiled as well as anything else. And you can see that that came through there good. I don't want to tear the seal. That's my concern at the moment. Alright, so let me get some of this stuff out of my way here. And the problem with, I'm sitting on a stool and I can't, but I gotta watch what I put on the ground because Bullseye grabs a hold of it and moves it on me. He'll pick stuff up and carry it off. Okay, so we need to line that up a little. And I want to put another kind of piece in there to push down on that. So I'll just hold on till I get something. Okay, so I have this piece of aluminum that I'm going to set on top of that bolt that's in there. And I'm going to use that to push down on this thing. This isn't anything in particular, it was just something I had made for something. I don't even know what it was for anymore. Let me just adjust that a little bit. There we go. Now you can feel with the resistance that you have whether the bushing or bearing is in there or not, and this is definitely in there. We're past the key, past the seal. Now I have a little bit of bearing there, but I think it's all the way in. I'll try it again here once just to make sure. I want to get that in the center of this rod if you can, so everything pushes straight down. Yeah, that's in there. Yeah, so that's in there good, and it turns easily. Not real easy. You can feel that there's some resistance, but that's not going to be a problem. The nice thing is it's a nice smooth turn. You can't feel anything like we could with the other bearing. So this end, for all intents and purposes at this point, is good. Now I got to start working on the other sides. So guys, it's the end of the day already, believe it or not. Like I say, I didn't get very far with this, but I'm taking my time with it. Because of the way it goes together, I'm not positive of where the clearances and stuff should be, so I need to work with that a little bit to see. But I think there's some shims that they use on the side shaft to be able to mesh those gears. And they're pretty tiny compared to like a regular ring and pinion that you can mark and then check and see if the teeth are hitting properly. So I want to do the best I can with this thing. So we have a couple more bearings to push on the sides, and I'll work on that later on. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching my videos again, guys. And hopefully we get this thing together tomorrow. At least the case. Depends on how many interruptions I get. Alright guys, so you can see inside here where the little square plate is and that bolt. That's what holds the bearing in place. And the bearing holds the shaft in place, and the bearing seats into a shoulder down on the bottom of it. So that thing doesn't move frontwards or backwards. It stays right where it is. Now the side shaft does have the ability to move a little bit. The more it moves in is how they're meshing that, I believe. Not exactly. It kind of works like a rear end on a car where you dial the dials and on the sides, and you can get this to mesh nice. And that's what happens here. But you need to use shims to do it. So we'll be working on that tomorrow then. Have a good one.